Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning. It's such an honor to be here. I love this is my first time at Creative Mornings. I love the manifesto, love the energy. Grateful to be here. Just before we start, how many of you compost? Oh, wow. How many of you compost with Wormies? Nice. Thank you. Camino. So today I'm going to be just talking a little bit about myself and my journey with Wormies. So yeah, Camino, right? We quickly went into that. Camino being a path forward. Buen camino, we said. We used to say that in Panama, you know. So I'm not gonna give you a full class on composting, but I'm gonna be just explaining the basics principles. The composting process. In the composting process, we have something that we call the feedstock, or the organic matter. We call it professionally, the material that we are working with, that we are gonna decompose. In the process of composting, we have the presence of oxygen. Oxygen brings life, right? So we are working with organisms that thrive in an aerated, oxygenated, aerobic environment. Then we have the presence of water that comes from the feedstock, or water from the environment, the moisture. So water is life. So water attracts organisms. So we are gonna see the presence of microorganisms, and those are all the things that are gonna come into place when we compost. Then in the process of composting, we are gonna see release of moisture, release of water, release of energy. All these microorganisms work together. They create communities, and they provide heat. Their heat. And that heat we can see it in the form of heat. These piles of compost can become really hot. They can be up to 140, 160 degrees, 200 degrees. Sometimes you may smell some things come out of a compost pile. And at the end of the process, we have something that we call compost. It's a very complex end product, right? So I will say, in the process of composting, we go through different phases. We have a phase, where we are gathering all of our feedstock, and then we put them together. We call them browns and greens. We put them together, we make a pile. And in this process, then come the presence of the organisms I was talking about. These organisms go into a mesophilic stage, which is a cold stage, in layman terms, a cold stage of composting. There is no heat. Organisms are getting together. They are trying to see, okay, what are we gonna do here? Mold starts to come in some of the food waste. You see roly-polies, worms, millipedes, centipedes. They all start doing their thing, shredding, exchanging. The roly-polies may shred the leaves so the worms can eat it more easily. So that's the first stage, the mesophilic, cold composting. You see macroorganisms doing things. Then things start to heat up. Things heat up. Why? Because we see more microorganisms, the one that we cannot see. So they start coming to life, with the moisture and the heat and the oxygen. And then there is so many of them that the pile starts to heat up. And then, in that process, the we go into the mesophilic phase again. So it's just mesophilic, thermophilic, and mesophilic, cold, hot, and cold. So wanted to give you that preview so you understand a little bit what we have gone through in the composting process. What else? Sometimes you may smell you may have some odors coming out of a compost pile, but honestly, compost shouldn't smell. If you go to a compost facility, most of those facilities smell like the forest floor. You go to a landfill and they are really stinky. So, why is that difference? Why is there smell at the landfill? Because at the landfill, we have organic matter, food waste, leaves, decomposing anaerobically without the presence of oxygen. So oxygen attracts an anaerobic environment or anaerobic organisms. So when that happens, organic matter decomposes anaerobically, and we can call it in an unhealthy manner. That's why we have the smells, we have rodents, we have what we call vectors, germs, viruses, all of those things that the landfill that contaminates the soil, contaminates the air through those gases that get released, and contaminates the waterways. So none of that should be happening in composting. When you compost, all of that water should be absorbed by the brown material, the leaves, the wood chips that you have in there. It all get absorbed and retained, so the microbes can have their time to go through it, eat it. So I didn't start my camino with Wormies knowing all of this. I used to be an accountant. Um, I made a career as an accountant, as an auditor. I worked in Washington, D.C., in Panama for many, many years. At some point, I was feeling a little bit non-motivated. So I said, I'm going to step back, I want to step back. So I said, I'm going to take some oxygen. I'm going to step back. So I went to spend some time at a farm in Canada. I spent time at that farm for about a year and a half. And I just wanted to take some time off, right? There, they needed a compost manager, and they gave me that title. I didn't know anything. At that farm, they had events, meditation events, where they will compost for about more than 2,000 people at a time. People that come to the events, they get all their food waste, and they will compost it. So I was the manager for that. So I will go to the dining hall, pick up the food waste, bring it back to the farm. At the farm, there was a big pile. I was supposed to put all the food waste in there, and that was my work. Just put the food waste there, cover it with what I thought at the time was soil, but it was actually just compost. So one of the things, at that time I wasn't thinking I was going to be a farmer, a composter, or anything like that. I was just taking some time off. But there was the manager at the farm. His name was Jack. He said one day, "Hey Luis, can you go to my house? Let's go to my house. We have to go get something." We go into his house. On there, the crawl space that those houses have, dark crawl space. He brings out a 55-gallon drum, wooden drum. So he said, just let's grab a bucket of this. It looked like very black soil. We opened the drum. It was this black soil, bunch of worms, bunch of things crawling. I was like, okay, yeah, let's grab a 5-gallon bucket, he said, and let's bring it to the compost pile at the farm. So we took a bucket of that. We brought it to the pile. He said, let's sprinkle it in there. Okay. I said, okay, let's sprinkle it. I had no idea what was going on. Later, I understood. you know what we were doing. He wasn't very good at explaining things. He just wanted to get the job done. So he said, I understood. We were taking his mother culture. That's what he called it, a mother culture. I later knew that was a 40-year mother culture that he has been carrying with him his entire, adult life. He has been carrying that mother culture wherever he works, wherever he lives, to inoculate soil, to inoculate farms, to inoculate compost piles. So it's like this culture, of microbes, worms, organisms that he has been nurturing for 40 years, to bring life, into all these different ecosystems. So yeah, that was the first time I came into the realization of, oh wow, wondering about soil health, microorganisms, macroorganisms. After Canada, I came back to Michigan, and I was so energized. Oh, now I started wondering, so much about everything, wondering about growth, my life, what do I want to do, goodness. So I said, I'm going to try to do something else instead of accounting. So I tried, a little bit of farming. At the same time, I wanted to grow my own food, of course. So I started a food plot at my house, in my front yard. I started a food plot and started studying, studied a little bit of permaculture, studied soil food web, and started learning, The more I read, the more obsessed I became. Making that first raised bed, three things came to the realization. The first one, soil is extremely expensive. I spent about $400 to fill out that raised bed, $400, and that was like from Home Depot, it wasn't even Wormies. $400 to feed that raised bed, make the frame. I realized that, you cannot, you shouldn't be using the soil that's on the ground in an urban area because it's not safe. So in that process, I learned, there is topsoil, all the soil that we see, that we step on the ground, that's what we call topsoil. Then there is engineered soil that is composed of different ingredients. For example, a potting soil. An engineered soil is not really soil. It's just different ingredients that we put together and plants can thrive. Like the potting soil is just a mixture of peat moss, maybe perlite, little bit of sand, compost. So there is no topsoil in a potting soil. So there are many different kinds of engineered soils. As I was, working on my garden beds, looking for good soil, learned, all vegetables, all foods that we grow, all the plants that we grow, the vegetables that we eat does not contain the same nutrients. They are not, they don't provide the same amount of nutrients, For example, if you buy from a store, there is a high chance that the nutrient density of those vegetables are going to be less because nutrients come from the soil that you grow and the life in that soil. So I said, okay, so I want nutrient density, okay? So I said, okay, how do I get nutrient density? Yeah, from the organisms that are mining the soil and exchanging those minerals in the soil with the roots of the plants. That's what happened that's what we call the nutrient cycling. The microbes in the soil are harvesting minerals from around the soil and talking to the plant roots and telling the plants, the roots, is this what you want? And the roots said, okay, I'm gonna give you some sugars. And the plant roots give sugars to these microbes. So it's a relationship that they have, you know. So I said, okay, we need to, and that brought me back to Jack, you know. Okay, we need this culture. Where do I get this culture? I started looking in Michigan, who is doing things like this, farmers. Wasn't very easy. Like, didn't find that many people. I did find one farmer was so obsessed, you know, about his compost, his cows. So I got some manure from him. I bought some worms and started my own vermiculture at home. We didn't even have a house at that time, so kept my worms. I think it was my brother's house. Keep my first vermiculture in their basement. Anyway, shortly after, yeah, you know, kept learning. My coworker Michael, he said, "Hey, you wanna do this at my farm?" I said, "Yeah." So he allowed me, he let me use his farm to grow my vermiculture. I said, okay, this is very cool because he had a very big farm. It was like 20 acres. And he was just giving me a greenhouse. It was like a quarter acre. So at that time I said, okay, maybe we can do something else with this. We can offer a service. I asked my wife, Sarah, maybe we can offer a service. You know, there is no access to composting, or at least I don't see composting being advertised. So maybe we can offer a service. You know, because I wonder why is not composting is not part of waste management. You know, or we don't see it as an option the same way we see landfilling or trash. Why is our food waste going into the landfill? You know, 40% of the trash what we put in the trash bin is compostable. You know, all the leaves, all the cardboard, all the food waste. You know, we only put our trash bin out once a month because half of it goes into Wormies. So I said, okay. My wife she was very supportive. She said, yeah, let's do it. So I opened a Facebook page. Think the first brainstorming of names was the wormhole. And she said, no, 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 no. And she helped me with the logo. She helped me with the name. And we have this little car here. You see that blue car? That was the car. And I said, okay, that we have a compost facility now, and we have a hauling service. Anyway, in that car, I said, because I have been composting for a year now, so I knew, you know, I don't need that much. I fill up a 5-gallon bucket once a week, so I can put 10 buckets in day in that little car, and create a route. So I have 10 clients, 5 days a week, 50 clients. So we put the advertisement, and people came, and they joined. So that was pretty exciting. Then, you know, I met Spring GR, who is an entrepreneurial ecosystem. I met Star Garden. They were extremely encouraging. They were catalytic. You know, this is what I like to call the thermophilic stage of Wormies, because everything happened. Everything happened. You know, everything happened. Things were heating up. Yeah, so things were heating up, and at some point, in the process of, you know, getting all this attention, the cannabis legalization came into place, and it started getting calls from growers like, "Oh, you are making worm castings. Worm castings is the type of soil that we make." Sorry, I didn't introduce that much about Wormies. Was a little bit nervous, but I hope you all know what we do now. So in the process in El Camino, the legalization of cannabis came in, And all of these growers were calling, oh, we want some of your compost. I said, okay, this is amazing. So why did they want my compost? Because it provides flavor to the plant. It provides growth, provides flavor, what they call terroir. So I said, okay, if we have people buying the soil, now we can make this a complete business. Because, but competing with waste management or the landfill, it's impossible. I didn't know we could have a business just by hauling food waste and turning it into compost without selling it. So now, all of these people started buying our compost, and I said, okay. And then the pandemic came in. My first child came in. It was very thermophilic. But we kept going, we kept going. All these farmers markets, you go to all these events, talks, meeting people. I am not outgoing. I talking to people was super uncomfortable, but you learn to pitch. You learn to talk to people, be a little bit more relaxed. So, I practice and learn. By the end of that, we said, okay, now all these people are buying soil. Maybe, the place where we were renting a space, Trillium Haven Farms, from Michael Vanderberg. He said, oh, he's gonna sell the farm. I said, oh my gosh, now what? So he said, he's gonna sell the farm, so we had to move out, right? I said, okay, let's double down. So I said, I called all my family members, and I said, we need to buy land. We need to buy land. And I had 3 family members. They provided some funds to buy land. However, the business plans wasn't really tight. Land is very expensive, and this is just a bare plot. We need infrastructure. Where is your water? Where is your electricity? Where is your driveway? So we started pitching. There was an opportunity for a grant. There was a grant opportunity from the Department of Environment for composting facilities. So that's how I convinced my family members to give me money. I said, we're gonna buy this land, but we are gonna need this other money. But to get this other money, they're not gonna give it to us if we don't have land. So we need to get the land. So they bought the land. So before, the grants, I had to do all these pitch competitions and pitching. I pitched so much. In about a year and a half span, we got the money, we got the money for the infrastructure. Amazing. We got the money. They bet on Wormies. And it was a lot of money, 3 of my family members, no a small amount. And they put it down, and we got, at that time, knowing that you got the money for the infrastructure, you know that your investment, at least, is going to be returned if anything happens. So yeah, everyone was happy, so happy. It was a 3-year grant that we had 3 years in time to set up all the infrastructure, get Wormies ready, operational, for the pickup service that we offer. The vehicles that go out and pick up food waste from residents, businesses, getting all the infrastructure in place, then getting the infrastructure for the farm, getting the driveway, the electricity, the water, the buildings. So a week after we got the notice from EGLE, the Department of Environment, about that big grant, we get a letter from the township. Cease and desist. We get a cease and desist letter from the township. We haven't even been using the plot. Before we bought the land, I did go into the township and said, I'm gonna buy this land, and this is the plan I have. And this is an agricultural space, zoned for agriculture. And the township came to the conclusion, before I bought the land, they came to the conclusion that Wormies is an agricultural activity permitted in an agricultural space, right? So I said, okay, perfect. Yeah, we bought it. So a year has passed. We got the grant, and then we get that letter, and I was like, what happened? we did bring all of our mother culture from the last farm, because that's our main culture. It was this black gold. So we brought it into the new farm. We set up some rows. There might have been a little bit of food waste, but it's a 13-acre space, in the middle of nowhere. Not in the middle of nowhere, but there's a few houses. So there were some piles. What happened, what I think happened, or what I know happened, is the neighbor had a dog, came inside the property, was rolling into the pile, into the mother culture, decided to go to the township to ask what we were doing. And then I get a cease and desist letter. Like, that was way too extreme. So because we were not bringing food waste in the property, during that period, I was bringing the food waste into other farms. And I will still continue to offer the pickup service, but I was bringing the food waste to other farmers. I wasn't composting at this property. So what happened is that, the neighbor was concerned after he found out that we were a composting facility. Then, goes online. Instead of talking to me personally, online somebody start having opinions about, oh my God, commercial composting operation. That doesn't sound very friendly, if you have $1 million houses around you. We are a commercial composting operation. We are permitted. We comply. But we have that commercial composting permit because we wanna sell compost. That doesn't mean we're a traditional composting operation. We do things very differently. With Wormies, our process takes about a year, maybe even a year and a half or two. The way we do things is that, we go into the thermophilics phase for about 1 month. That means, you make your pile and you turn it with a tractor, skid steer, and heats up. There is microorganisms only. In thermophilic phase, there is only microorganisms. Do I have enough time? 10 feet, thank you. Yeah, in the thermophilic phase, there are no macros, only micros, because it's too hot. The worms will die. The millipedes, centipedes is too hot for them. So we do hot composting because it decreases the risk of pathogens. It kills some of the seeds coming from the food waste. So it's a good idea to do thermophilic if you're going to be having such a big biomass of food waste and organic matter. And it's also required by Eagle. So we do that for 1 month. Then after that, we disrupt the process and we make we take all that pre-composted material and we make shallower piles, or we call them windrows. It's a long windrow. It's like very, very, maybe 2 feet high. And we inoculate those piles with worms. And the worms are going to take care of that for a year. So that's how we do things at Wormies. And why do we do it like that? Because of soil health. If you only do thermophilic composting and get the compost done in 3-4 months, it's ready. You can put it back to feed plants, to feed the soil. Or it's not the same. It's going to have a lot of microbial activity, but it's not going to be the same as if macroorganisms had a better chance of processing it. So all the macroorganisms in the mesophilia, the worms, millipedes, centipedes, they they add a second layer into the process. They eat and they poop. They eat and they poop. So I like to say that soil is nothing else than the poop of so many organisms, you know. So, you know, when I decided to compost with worms, was because I learned that, you know, the worms, through their gut action, they encapsulate beneficial bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, growth hormones, and enzymes. You know, all of that in a little bowl of poop, and nutrients, So that is a, a bowl of fertilizer, you know, for plants. In comparison, let's say, oh, does that happen with cow poop, human poop, horse manure? No, it's not the same. If you grab horse manure or human poop and you use it to fertilize the soil or the plants, it's gonna burn the plants. So it's not ready to go. The poop of the worm is ready to go. So that's the purpose of the worm, to create a readily available fertilizer for plants or for the soil. So we said, okay, worms are the ultimate soil maker. But in one more thing I would like to add, in nature, you don't see big piles of hot compost, right? You don't see hot piles. So composting is a man-made process. Another reason why I like to compost with mesophilia more often, for more time than thermophilic composting. You don't see in nature, you don't see hot piles decomposing things. So that's another reason why we encourage mesophilia. So yeah, things were getting too hot in that pile. The township said, no. They put the cease and desist, and we had to back down. We had to take some air. What do we do when the pile is too hot? We don't want the pile to go 150 degrees because it starts killing beneficial bacteria, moisture, the moisture gets released, the piles are getting dry. So we had to treat the community with kindness, you know. It took a 2.5-year long process to explain, to tell them what we do, why we do it, because they didn't know. They were just afraid. They thought it was going to be like a landfill. So it wasn't, you know. We were turning an agricultural space that was bare into an oasis of life. So after explaining, you know, it was a very hard process because I had people in those township meetings. A lot of people from the community came and they were angry. I don't know why. Like, I haven't even talked to them. They were so angry. They were like, how dare you? Who are you? They would say things like that. Who are you to come into my town? I was like, whoa. I was very strong words, you know. But so many things, you know, came out of that. It was very beautiful, you know. Because I told the team, you know, we just have to be kind. We have to be kind. They have fear. So that's what we did. We showed them what we were doing and why we were doing it. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's very emotional. Anyway, by the end of the process, at the beginning of the process, the entire township board said, no, you're not going to do this. They were sure that this was not going to happen. After the 2.5-year process, you know, I contacted 350 customers that I had at that time. I said, you need to support me. I contacted leaders in the community, all of the people that I have met. I said, you need to support me with this. And everyone supported, you know. Everyone came. They came, the Department of Environment came. Experts from other states called and to explain what we were doing. So the board got very overwhelmed. They were so overwhelmed. I put a 35-page document explaining my project. And they were like, oh my God, this is so thorough. They had never seen anything like that. And I ended up spending a quarter of the grant funding I had and my time and my money into all these 2 years, you know. Anyway, we made it. By the end of it, the township board voted unanimously to support the project. And and in 2024 November, we had a fully operational facility. I like to call it a compost farm because it's not really a compost site. You don't see, in a traditional compost site, you see big piles, big machines. Here, you see a lot of piles, worms, nature. You know, it's all about working with nature, community, trees. You know, we don't want to obliterate the entire place. We want to bring trees. We want to bring shade. We want to bring. We don't want a fence. We want to welcome ecosystems. We want to work with them. They are indicators. They are there to let us know, you know, what's going on and how to remediate the problems of food waste, the problem of access, the problems of health, you know. So yeah, I have learned a lot. I've learned about resiliency. I've learned about community, diversity. You know, it's not just about worms. It's about all the diverse ecosystems, diverse microbes, everything that you see on the soil is providing intelligence, is providing capabilities for the work that we do. In this photo here, this is very interesting. These are salamanders that we often find at the farm. And we wonder, you know, wow, they're very beautiful. Why are they everywhere? They like to eat the worms, but also they are indicators of clean soil, you know, uncontaminated soils. So we are very happy to see them around. And yeah, this is just a photo of the farm. And I'm gonna show you a little video that we have. We are in the business of regenerating soil by composting food scraps with worms. I started Wormies for one simple reason. I wanted to grow my own food in the healthiest manner. The more I worked in composting, you know, the more I got in touch with the issues of food waste. 45% of waste that goes to the landfill is compostable.
Composting is an action that you and I can take to contribute to the natural cycles of life. We can divert waste from landfills where it doesn't go away and use it instead to create, to give back to the nature, to the soil that gives to us.
I pick up from our residential service. We drive them back to the farm here and I dump them. And then we're gonna add wood chips over this. We also add in biochar and then we'll flip it in the process too.
After the pre-composting phase, we lay these windrows. Then we add worms. We use red wiggler worms. We feed your food scraps to worms. In turn, the worms will poop and they're gonna inoculate these pellets of poop with growth hormones, enzymes, and nutrients.
And just 1 teaspoon of healthy compost, there's more microbes than there are people on this planet. It is diverse biology that will team up with your plants and act as their immune system, keep them healthy, keep them free of pests and pathogens, while remediating any toxins. And it's just the building blocks for life. It's got everything that you need.
So my hope, you know, is that 10 years down the line, composting is a common practice and landfills do not exist. right. Buen camino.
Buen camino. Go back to work, everyone.